This is Radio with the song Pearls on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Hi guys, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. Today we'll be speaking to singer-songwriter and promoter Ray Dio. Now, we follow Ray's journey growing up in Texas and then moving to Colorado and then finally making the decision of going to Beijing and now living in Shanghai. Now, Ray is one of the best promoters indie scene here in Shanghai. Now, Ray is always playing live music, his acoustic set, And the good thing about Ray is that, he can play with some heavy metal bands, he can play with funk bands, he can play with all different sort of styles of music. But before we go, please go to our website. We're at Podbean. Tell Craig your story at podbean.com. We are on all the major streaming services, Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, to name a few. We also have a link tree there which tells you where Tell Craig Your Story podcast is streaming. We also have a YouTube channel there. Make sure you're subscribing to get the latest updates. I also want to give a plug to my band Full Throttle. We have finally finished recording our first EP, and we'll be doing an EP launch at Loafers Bar in Shanghai. It'll start at 8 p.m. on the 10th of July. It's a Saturday night. Make sure you can get down there. We have a great lineup. We have Clams Getaway, Receiver, and Loose Booty also playing on the night. Pre-sale will go on sale next week, 40 UN, and all the people that buy a ticket to the show for pre-sale a free Full Throttle t-shirt. All right, here we go. This is my chat with Radio on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Hey Ray, how you doing tonight?
Hello, Mr. Craig. Nice to see you today, brother.
Good to see you as well.
Happy Dragon Boat Festival.
Dragon Boat Festival.
What's today? I actually didn't even realize it until this morning, and I sent a message to some people I thought they were going to be at work, and I'm like, hey, this, and they're like, we're off today. I'm like, oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
It's a holiday.
I saw you Friday night. I saw you Saturday night, bumping into you all the time.
Yeah, what'd you think of the show on Saturday?
I really liked it. It was the first time seeing Loose Booty, who was also
You Know My Name or something.
jelly spoons. They're all jelly, all jelly spoons.
Jelly spoons and friends.
Yeah, so don't know what's happening with jelly spoons, but lots of seeing Chris and seeing Matt. It was great to see them sort of in new bands and exploring new music.
Especially if the band is good. Man for taking these.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it was a great weekend for music to get out there. We saw Kimura Cold as well.
Oh yeah, that was
awesome. Jason.
They're really good.
Yeah, they know how to put on a live show.
I wish they played earlier though, man. Everyone always leaves by the time they play. They always put themselves last.
Late,
and it's just like, what was the silent film?
Yes.
Were you into that?
That was really cool. That was interesting. People sitting down before a metal show. But the one thing that I noticed that I'd never seen a band play and then turn around and have their backs turned
to the crowd.
Have you ever seen that before?
I think Maynard used to do that in like a
perfect
really? Circle. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, he used to like play with his back to the crowd. I mean, I know that some people are just nervous and if they see the crowd, they will like play differently. I guess. Yeah, so they just do that, but I don't think it's very good. I mean, for like a show. It's strange. I mean, another like weird thing is like when people decide to play off the stage instead of on the stage. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple bands that really pull it off, like Shanghai China. I don't know how to say that name. Shanghai China. I don't know how to say that name. But they, I saw them at Yuentong, and they played off stage, and everybody like was just like around them, just watching this band play, and it was really
it was
something. It was a strange experience for sure.
Intimate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess if you've got like 10 people in the band and you're playing at YYT or something like that, okay, you off stage or... But yeah, some of them...
Well, it's cool, like, because even like the people actually jump on the stage to watch the guys.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So wow. It's like a big, huge, weird thing.
Very interesting. Well, good weekend. Good to see. I do believe that you did stay here during the pandemic here in China, especially with the people listening in Australia. We don't get to hear the sort of news coming out of here. So your experiences, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now.
Well, I remember I maybe the last few days of my work, with all my coworkers. I had gotten some videos of some people in Beijing, and there were people in hazmat suits checking everybody off the plane, and a quick 20-second video of that, and I remember showing my coworkers, and they're like, ha ha ha, we were all laughing like, oh, what is that about, you know? And then maybe like within a week, everything started to like, all the news started to come in, and things started to get locked down. Coworkers that went on vacation were never able to come back, and they're just still stuck wherever they were. I believe everyone had kind of like a similar experience who was living here in China anyway, that a lot of people just went on vacation and just never came back.
That's
you
right.
know? Even one of my closest friends from my hometown, she left just to go for like a couple of weeks, and then she got locked out, and I had to go and clean her apartment. I still have her stuff. I still have her stuff in my apartment, like waiting on nothing. I don't know. I don't know if she's ever gonna come back. But yeah, I mean, other than that though, you know, I've been really fortunate since the pandemic. You know, I knew when I saw the signs, I was like, I'm not gonna get on a plane. I'm not gonna get on any trains. I'm not gonna try to get sick anywhere. Be around a lot of people. And so I stayed at home, stuck around here in Shanghai. I didn't leave anywhere, and I really benefited from it because it's been really nice here in Shanghai, actually.
Did you have work? Did you have online work or something?
So my boss was really on it. The beginning, like right in the beginning, we already had online classes. When we were supposed to come back from work after vacation, she already had set up online for us. So so for the next month, 2 months, we did online classes, and then we kind of did face-to-face classes, but with really strict guidelines, and then it just kind of opened up. I still have a few online classes now, but most of my classes now are just face-to-face.
Right.
Face-to-face classes.
During that time, because I left 4th of February, I was going to go to the US. Of all places, on the 2nd of February, I had a flight booked to LA. I was going to see my friend and go to Chicago. And then Trump brought in on the 1st of February saying, if you've been to China in the last 14 days, you can't come. So I rescheduled it and booked a flight home. Before that, those couple of days, people were just locked down. Like the main streets here were just empty, like the main streets of Shanghai, which are normally pumping. Yeah. So in general, was the Chinese, were they okay? I thought they did a very good job.
Well, they have a good thumb on the people, so they're able to contain everyone pretty quickly. I think that's the big difference in the U.S., where people are generally free to do whatever they want, and they have a lot of problems when it comes to things like this. On the other hand, everyone's being tracked by their phones here, and so it was really easy to just figure out who's been who saw who, where they were, and kind of do the geo mapping or whatever they're doing in order to figure out who's sick and who's not sick, or who's a threat and who's not a threat. But there's some people who we're not so lucky, even here in China, who hit every marker along the way. We're in quarantine, and then quarantine again, and then quarantine again, and it's just like, oh man, it's bad luck for some people. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, a lot of people did die from it too. So I mean, getting that also is not very lucky.
Yeah. In terms of the music scene, again, before I left, it was going really good.
Yeah, it was fine. It was great.
So in terms of the music scene, did that affect that? And for you?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it definitely, nobody was allowed to really go to any big shows for a while. Crowds and things, there was a big stop to all that for a while. But when everything started to clear back up, there was a big kind of hole missing in the music scene, where a lot of people who were doing it before who are no longer here, and so the venues had a problem just finding people to play. This is kind of how I when I started actually doing making shows, because I had seen a post from one of the managers at one of the venues, like, hey, we're looking for bands to play. And so I said, oh, let me, I can maybe organize a concert for me and my friends. And one turned into many.
Right.
And so now that's, for the last year and a half to almost 2 years now, I've been just organizing shows. So it actually gave me an opportunity. While a lot of people were not here,
yes,
other people were able to kind of fill in those gaps. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those people. So that's how I got my start. From the virus actually helped me start my music music endeavor, really.
With that, did you have any sort of like experience booking shows before that?
I had experience playing shows.
Playing shows, yeah.
I never really took the time. Like I've never really organized as many things as I've at least been doing in the last couple of years. I've always done one little piece of it. Maybe I would make a flyer, or maybe I would know a band and I could recommend a band to somebody else, but never in charge of kind of everything. And which has kind of been what I've been doing lately. It's just kind of doing it all, finding the bands, getting them together, putting the flyers together, and then doing promotion for it. So this is really the first time in my life that I've been really pursuing this area of music. For many years, of course, I've been a musician, playing my own music,
yes.
and just doing my own thing. And now it's kind of changed the dynamic of how I view music and how I interact with bands around me and things like that.
So you're getting out there, seeing bands, playing. I mean, can you make a career out of this? Like, is it like you get commission? Is there someone that's like
no? I mean, I know that there are people out there that do it, but right now there's no way I could afford to do it full time. I end up losing money a lot of the times on shows, just because of the nature of the venue process, and also I'm doing a lot of free work just with the artwork and things like that. So in the end of the day, I'm just kind of like doing it as a hobby, but I do notice things coming together in ways that I couldn't imagine. Like putting two bands together and then them meeting each other and becoming good friends, and then seeing them play other shows like without me, is really a really kind of surreal experience to see, like, hey, I did this. The reason why this is happening is because of this little thing that I did a long time ago, and that really makes me kind of secretly proud of my work.
Of course.
So that's what I'm really like happy about. Just to see the connections that people are making just from the things that I'm organizing. So I see those connections happening, and I just feel like I'm doing a good thing for other people. Down the line, I mean, I don't know where the end of the road is for these bands or anything, but to see them go on and to bigger and better things is really rewarding to me.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah,
you're not only booking bands, but you're putting people in other bands, and they need a drummer or a bass player. Who do we go to? Right. That's good to see. So, what was your first bands that you booked? Just, you said you were friends, right?
So originally my idea was kind of organizing bands to play my genre of music. So I put together a show called Acoustic Lucid, and I'm still even now doing lucid shows, like naming them Lucid because it's kind of been my my little baby.
Right.
But the Acoustic Lucid show originally was just a bunch of acoustic artists, folk artists, to come together and play acoustic music. So that's what I really wanted to start, like a fan base for these types of musicians, because I would play shows myself and feel like, oh, well, there's not really the audience for me, Of course there's an audience for all the bands and stuff, but there's not really an audience for what I'm doing. So I wanted to put together a show specifically for indie artists, or these kind of acoustic indie artists. So like Willie and the Wonk Guy and a couple of other acoustic friends that I know that just do acoustic music. I know Nina from Jelly Spoons. She was in the original Acoustic Lucid.
Come on.
Jessica Kreisman, she was in the Acoustic Lucid. A lot of those people, and I mean, Nina went on to get into Jelly Spoons, and it's like it built something for all these artists to be able to have like a legitimate show to play, a legitimate venue to play. They all went on to bigger and better things. So
they're all in different bands.
They're all doing different things. Jessica right now, I don't know if she's doing really a lot of music. She's she's an art teacher, so she does art also. But all the other bands, I mean, all the groups, they're all doing very well. I mean, everyone's still making music and doing really well. So I'm proud of everyone that's been a part of my shows and who continues to do music. I'm happy that everyone's doing well.
And speaking of that, how was the music scene when you first come to Shanghai, as opposed to the Shanghai music scene now today?
Well, I'm much more part of it.
Yeah,
I think that's a thing. I'm seeing a lot more shows. I think I would go and see a lot of Chinese musicians playing with a lot of foreigner bands. So I would always see kind of like a half and half kind of bill. Now I see a little bit more segregated. Like a lot of Chinese bands are playing with Chinese bands and foreigners playing with foreigners. Occasionally they will have the crossover. But for the most part, I don't think a lot has changed. I mean, definitely the names have changed of the bands. They're playing in different groups, or there's just different bands altogether, newer bands and things. But for the most part, the music scene is the same.
Yeah,
the same everywhere. There's still the same venues, same faces. So.
But that's the cool thing about a place like Shanghai, is that the names might change. All these new people coming in to form new bands and keeping bands going, all different parts of the world coming together, a mix of all sort of influences. So I think, so you're doing YYT bar?
I do a lot of YYT.
Yeah.
Loafers. Occasionally I'll do a Mal show. We do a couple of shows anywhere. I was doing an open mic. Yeah, my place Room Bar. We do shows there. I used to do an open mic with Bubba's, the Texas restaurant. I kind of got too busy, and it's kind of seemed like a job that I wasn't getting paid for, so I just stopped doing it. I still have a lot of equipment there, but I love the place. The food's really good, but I go there and I spend too much money, because I drink and I eat,
steak,
and I drink and I
ribs.
eat. Yeah, the ribs and the brisket and all the stuff, So I had to kind of keep myself from going there. Otherwise, I'd be way fatter.
It's on the way, and then once we get the big
bands again,
the
touring bands.
Yeah, touring bands. I think it's gonna.
Oh man, I'd love to have some people open up for some touring bands. I think that'd be really nice to get those opportunities. That's what we're missing the most right now. I mean, as far as the change, I would see big bands come in all the time to Shanghai because it's one of the biggest cities ever. So a lot of big bands would come through here, and right now it's no foreigners have been able to come in. So. It's really, that's the only kind of drawback right now.
Maybe this time next year, the international bands will be able to come in and sort of... But they've got to start something. I mean, they got the Winter Olympics Beijing soon, so they better start...
Yeah, nobody's going to be allowed in. It's going to be
That's it.
Empty seats with, like, dummies in the seats, with, like, faces, different
waving
faces.
And just fake crowd.
Yeah, it'll be a silent crowd.
Yeah. So, speaking of Texas, you, let's go back into your history.
Sure.
Born in Texas?
Born in Texas.
Whereabouts?
Corpus Christi.
Right.
Do you know of Corpus Christi?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah. It's kind of a beach town. I grew up there, just doing the same thing everyone does. I mean, it's a small town. It's very beautiful, but I always just dreamed of leaving it.
Right.
Now I dream
is it a big city?
No, it's a pretty small city.
And where is it? What city is it close to? Like
it's kind of next to of San Antonio.
Right.
San Antonio, where the Alamo is. It's about 3 to 4 hours south of San Antonio.
Okay.
And Texas is very big, so although 3 to 4 hours is very close.
Yes.
in Texas time, you can be driving, 15 hours and you still be in Texas, just trying to get out. It's one of those places.
Did your parents, were they involved in music or entertainment industry?
My grandfather, Caesar, he plays harmonica. And so I would grow up, I kind of learned about keys really early because... I don't know if you know about harmonica, but there's like a special equation or if you're playing in the key of C, he has to be in the key of G.
Right.
If I'm in the key of E, he has to be in the key of A. So I learned a lot about keys really early on, and he kind of drilled into me oh man, keys are important.
Yeah.
And someone who plays harmonica really has to know exactly what you're doing. Otherwise, it doesn't sound right. So I learned that early on. As far as my mom's like an artist. She's a painter. I have a lot of sisters, and they're all kind of more into art than they are into music.
Right.
So yeah, I'm kind of the only one that really is pursuing music as like a major hobby.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of other people. Oh, actually, my cousin and my uncle. They are like drummers. They play in like metal bands. So my cousin was in this band called X Tripwire X, which is like a real famous band in South Texas. Yeah. And they actually I met somebody here, actually David, who's the lead singer of Rat King. And he was like, man, because he's from Texas too.
Right.
And he said, man, that one band, X Tripwire X, they used to kill back in the day. I used to love that band. I'm like, yo, that's my cousin's band. I used to know I know all those guys.
Wow.
But it's a small world. I mean, but yeah, so a couple of my cousins are into music. But I personally, in my immediate family, am the only one that's like really doing music a lot, at this time.
Tell us about the music scene in Corpus Christi and in Texas in general. Like, I think as a cliche, it would be very country. Pantera's from Texas, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, Pantera, one of the best bands ever. Right?
Yeah, come on.
So, actually, in my hometown, there's a huge, like grind metal scene where it's just like a lot of kids are just listening to this kind of punk metal, like the same kind of genre as Rat King. Then like what they're doing is like what reminds me of being like a kid in my hometown.
Yeah,
like,
right.
They play like a very similar genre to what I was grew up listening to.
In your face, loud.
Yeah, very in your face, loud. People just throwing punches in the crowd. That is how it's. There's also it's not country, but there's a genre of music called Tejano, which is like Texas and Texas mixed with like Mexican country. It's like Mexican country, I guess.
Cool.
And they call it Tejano. It's like a lot of accordion is very major, and then just like a rock band around it, kind of playing like a country style, but with like Spanish and English mix of words and stuff. So yeah, Tejano's really big in Texas. So they have some country, but not really in my hometown. It's not super prominent. I think more people will be listening to like classic rock music versus country itself. But I think probably the biggest music scene is the metal scene, like the people playing that hardcore music.
So when you were there, in high school and whatnot, were you going to shows like big festivals and?
So I went to a few big festivals. One of the big ones that I remember is one called Sounds of the Underground, where I listened to a huge variety of metal music and there's a lot of great bands. Job for a Cowboy, Goat Whore, Gwar.
Oh, nice!
Yeah.
Whoa, they're really cool.
Gwar. So Gwar, probably when I was maybe 14 or 15, I went to go see them, and one of the best shows that I've ever seen. I've never seen like anyone else do what they do on stage, and they just have like kind of a theater with this monsters coming out and like eating a priest and then they spray blood at the audience and everyone's getting dripped with all this goo. It's one of the best shows I've ever been to. I mean, their music is fine, but the live performance was seriously so good. I love that. I still think about it now, like as an adult. I'm like, man, wish I could do something like that.
What was unfortunate, I actually got to see the lead singer. They were touring for Soundwave in Australia, and they did that tour, and apparently just as they finished, he passed away.
Yeah, he died.
Yeah, which was such a shame. So I feel privileged that I
got to see
got to see one of his last shows before he passed away. Are they still going? Did they find a replacement?
I think so. I think they still, like, as far as like the characters in the band, He's still alive. So I think they just got somebody else to like kind of fill his shoes, but I'm not too sure. I'm not like updated on that really. But yeah, that was one of the best shows I've ever gone to. That Sounds of the Underground. Even my one of my friends who's in the same grade as me, or you know, we grew up together. He still has his Sounds of the Underground shirt that he just wears,
right,
you know, from that tour. You know, that particular time. It was such a good show. Then, but yeah, there's always music going on, always festivals going on. I didn't really play too much at this time. Like I when I was in middle school and high school, I tried to join like metal bands.
So tell us about, you know, your grandfather learning the keys and the note. So is that when you sort of started picking up the guitar and started...
So my very first instrument I played were like bongos. I used to have bongos.
Really?
And I would just play hand drums. Like when I was young, I got a pair of bongos, and I kind of liked the drums. And I had a drum set, but I never really learned how to play drums like very well. But I could play hand drums very, very well. I guess when I turned 10, I got a guitar, and I started playing music. Started learning like chords and things. I was into like flamenco music, so I really liked like Spanish flamenco. So I was learning a lot of that. Like I remember as a freshman in high school, I played like some flamenco stuff for like a talent show. And it went really well, and I really liked that genre of music. But I took some in college because I went to a high school where my high school and college were mixed. It was called collegiate high school. So I took high school classes that were dual credit, and I also took college classes with college kids as a high school teenager.
Wow!
And I was able to take some like classical guitar with a one-on-one trainer named Philip He, who is a Chinese musician, and he taught at this school. He's a very old, famous, flamenco player, and so I studied one-on-one with him for a couple of years, and it kind of boosted up my experience a little bit. But as far as like the music that I'm playing now, it's really chord driven. It has nothing to do with like classical music really, but I do know a lot of classical tunes and things like that. Yeah.
It's very interesting. So, yeah, so you're learning guitar, you're playing all different styles, and you said that you tried out for different bands. Did you have a band in Texas?
So in Texas, when I was going on to high school from middle school, I was in trying to get into a couple like metal bands. We had a couple. I don't even want to tell you the name. One of our band name was Necrophiliac. Oh,
can we Google that? Or probably best not to Google that.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think
Necrophiliac. Texas.
It'll be like no search results. Turn safe. Search off.
Yes.
So I tried to be in like metal bands, but my parents kind of put a stop to it kind of early on. I wasn't allowed to play or even listen to like really hardcore metal music when I was in high school. So that kind of drove me into acoustic guitar even more because it was really all that I was able to really like play. They even forced me to play in like church bands, so I played like, Christian rock.
So your family were obviously religious.
Yeah, they were really. It wasn't so great.
No, I can understand as well. Like, was it a rebel to go to all these metal shows?
So I grew up Catholic also. I mean, I was baptized. I took my first communion. I would do all this stuff. But like when I got into high school, my grandfather remarried, and at this time I was living with my grandparents, or I was living with him majorly, or a majority of the time. So he remarried, and then they became born again Christian. So we had to kind of like uproot, that from Catholic into Christian, and so then I had to play in this into the Christian bands. But yeah, I hated it, and the people there, they seemed nice, but it was always surface level nice, and they would try to. There was a couple of people that played music, and there was another guy who played acoustic guitar, and I came in, and the pastor of the place told me, "Oh, well, learn from this guy," and he would sabotage me, like he would change my tuner to like a different. How it goes to like 144, and he would change it to like 150 or something. So I would be off key from the entire band. and things like that, where like, you know, these people, they seem nice, but they were just backstabbing awful people, you know.
I heard stories like that Ozzy Osbourne was banned from Texas
for peeing on the Alamo.
Yeah, about 10 years. So rock and roll, but
they still do Ozfest, you know.
Yeah, right. Wow. Is this when you start to play original music, or are you still sort of doing like covers at this stage?
Yeah, so at this stage, so when I started playing acoustic guitar, like as a freshman and in high school, I was playing like flamenco style guitar. But I started playing with a girl who was a singer, and I would play guitar while she sang, and we would do covers like Evanescence covers and
Nice.
Maroon 5 covers and things like that. And at this time, I did not sing at all. I started singing, I think it was whenever I turned 15, I had my first job. It was in KFC. My first job was KFC. And I would always work the late shift with the other guys that would work there. And we would always, like, you know, goof around at the end of the night. And we would sing songs like, I want to be the very best. You know, just random songs, you know, and just try to make each other laugh. And one of the guys that was working was like, man, you're a really good singer. Are you in a band? You're singing so good. And that compliment kind of like, oh, man, maybe I can sing. You know, and so I started trying to sing songs on my own, and I played covers for a long time. I learned a lot of cover songs. I used to have the big book of songs, and I knew all sorts of songs with the chords and things. And of course, I was already playing like Christian music at this time, so I was already kind of doing that.
So did you have to work on your vocals, or was it just something that naturally...
I definitely worked on it. I spent a lot of time like just sitting in my garage, just like singing songs over and over again, like trying to get better, trying to learn guitar more trying to learn more songs on the guitar, but also trying to sing the songs that I was learning. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I kind of had this dream of being like a street artist and performing on the street and playing. Eventually I did start doing that. When I turned 16, I was very upset with my parents at the time because they were getting really, really strict with me, and I felt really kind of
restricted. Yeah,
restricted, but also even at school, like I had some problems with like my girlfriend cheated on me with this other friend. Yeah. You know, just like little
going through puberty,
teeny drama.
Yes.
But when I turned 16, I actually ran away from home. I ran away and I didn't really go back. I actually didn't finish my high school until later. When I turned 18, I went back into like the Job Corps program. You know, have you ever heard of Job Corps? It's like a school for like troubled youth, basically. Right. But when I turned 18, I was able to get kind of like a scholarship to go there. They paid for everything. Immediately when I got in there, they tested for a GED, and I got my GED immediately. And then I was able to take a couple of extra classes, and I also got my high school diploma. So I have my high school diploma and my GED. And then while I was there, I got a trade to do medical assistant. So I started working in the medical field. I didn't really return back home until I was 19, when my great-grandfather died, and they wanted me to be a pallbearer at the funeral. And so I kind of went back at 19 and kind of made up with my family and went through that whole thing, that whole process. But for a lot of time, between 16 and 19, when I was kind of basically on the street, I would do a lot of busking. Like I would play a lot of those cover songs that I was working really hard on learning. And I really started developing my voice even more out of like necessity. Yeah.
So has that sort of made you like a stronger person, that period of time? I mean, living by yourself, being very independent?
I think so. I mean, I don't even know if... I think I was so naive that I just thought that I could do it, and so I did it, you know. But even now, and I feel like if I just decided to just start walking the street and hitchhike somewhere, I'd feel really not secure about it. Yeah. So it would be hard for me to even do it now. But at that time, I was like young and naive, and I, it did kind of, it was a make or break kind of situation. So it did really make me kind of understand my connection to people and ultimately like it was a lot of me relying on generosity of other people and talking to them about my life and things and being able to like really make it. Eventually living on my own. By 17 I had my own apartment.
Wow.
I was already like working a job. I lied to them about my age, so I was working at this pizza place at the mall, and he was like, "Are you 18?" Right in the beginning I was like, "Yes, I'm 18." He's like, "Okay," and then I started working for like 2 months, and then the paperwork came back and he's like, "You're not 18, we can't hire we he had to fire me immediately. I worked a lot of just odd jobs. I worked a little bit of time in a pawn shop. I worked some time in like a car washing place where I like vacuum cars, the inside of cars, and it's like these places that just didn't do background checks because of whatever reason. They have like ex-cons working there, so I was able to kind of like get by without them checking. Since I was actually on the endangered child list, if anybody did a background check on me, I would get popped right away and get sent back home basically. So I tried my best to kind of stay clear of that kind of thing. Stayed in a lot of like different shelters around town and stuff, or around the towns I was in. So I left Corpus Christi immediately. I went to like San Antonio, Austin. I went as far as Colorado. I was living in Pueblo for a certain time, and then I ended up moving back into Austin. And it was kind of there until I turned 18. And once I turned 18, I was able to go to the Job Corps school where I got my stuff together.
So during that time, was it like, were you meeting these musicians or just...
No. I met a few musicians, but I mostly met a lot of like drug addicts and like con artists,
Yes.
So it was a lot of like me learning to
taking
like...
advantage of you.
Yeah, being careful about people not taking advantage of me. Like immediately, I think my very first day like leaving, somebody like stole like $200 from me. Like immediately, wow. I had a guitar stolen from me, and just a lot of other things. I had been mugged a few times, and it just, it's just one of those things. Once I looked like I was not worth anything, that's whenever things started to calm down. Once I started getting real dirty, grimy.
So how did they get in contact with you?
I was in contact with my sister.
Right.
Because I have actually a few different... I have a few sisters. So I would stay in contact with one of my sisters just to let them know that I was okay and I'm doing well, where I am and stuff like that. But I mean, when my great-grandfather died, they basically said, "Can you please come?
Yeah.
They want you to be the pallbearer." They didn't even know... They didn't tell my great-grandparents that I left. They were just like, "Oh, he's doing well."
Right.
And because they were so old by this time. So that's kind of a regret that I didn't get to like, see them or talk to them again, because they passed away before I was able to, go back and see them. So that was that was kind of a big thing. But, people die, people get old and die. So
that's right. It's life.
It's life, yeah.
Yeah.
Or so they say.
So you come back when you're 19 and... you go into this college, right? Is this sort of straighten you out a little bit, trying to get back into like a regular routine of school, working, being with family more?
The collegiate that I went to was in San Marcos. It's not in the same place as my hometown. I eventually did go back to school when I was like 23. I went back into Texas or into Corpus Christi and took more college to finish my bachelor's. But... for that time, the trade school, it didn't take me long to really to get it. And actually, a lot of the kids or the people that were in that school, it was like being in a jail, really.
Right.
It was very like it was very restrictive, and they monitored everybody. And at the same time, all the kids who were there were like really awful kids, just like doing awful things. So I wouldn't say that really straightened me out. I kind of had a good mindset from the very beginning. From the time I was 16, I had already kind of realized that my parents were not doing a good job, and I was like, man, I don't need to listen to you because I could do a better job on my own. So I already had like a really, I feel like I had a good mindset to begin with when I left and just stayed on a good road, because I knew a lot of friends, or I met a lot of friends on the street who got into drugs and kind of spiraled down quickly. And I managed to stay away from all
That's
that.
good.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like even now, like if you see somebody like that, you can say that you've sort of experienced that, you've seen that. So yeah, that's really that's a good thing. So what was your bachelor's degree?
In applied science. So I already had my medical training. So I was working as a phlebotomist for years. So after I finished collegiate high school, I was 19. Did the pallbearer thing with my family, made up with them. Immediately from there, I moved up to Colorado Springs with some friends from college. So I lived there for the next 4 years. I lived in Colorado.
Tell us about that. I've never been there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's one of the best places I've ever been to, really. Later, we're going to talk about our top favorite places.
Yes.
That's definitely one of them. I lived in Colorado Springs, and it's a very beautiful place in the mountains. Everything is so gorgeous, trees, and the air is fresh, and it's always something to do, hiking, music scene's great. Yeah. Everything was just so good in Colorado. It treated me very nice. My two friends that I moved with, Brandon and Shauna, Brandon Bean and Shauna Taylor, they're still living in Colorado right now. But we started playing music together in the college that we went to, where we met, and that's how we became friends. So when we moved to Colorado Springs, we started playing in a band. We got a band together. We had a viola player, a drummer, a bass player, and then me and him would play guitar and sing duo.
Nice.
We were in a band called the Green Tangerine. And I would be like, I'm Radio, and he goes, I'm Bean, and we are the Green Tangerine. And it was just really nice. We had a good thing going for a while. I started dating with the viola player, who was really beautiful girl. And then we broke up, and she left the band, and then we kind of had a rocky start.
Isn't that a thing? But yeah,
you don't date the band.
Don't date the band.
Don't date the people.
But everybody just assumes, right? You got a female.
You learn. You live and you learn. But you have a really beautiful female person in your band, and they attract audience. Just having a beautiful girl in the band just attracts an audience that you can't do without that. And it's I don't know what it is. It's just like a psychology or something. It's in mental thing. But once she left the band, it really kind of it was really hard after that. Yeah. We also had a bass player who refused to play this show. He's like, no, we will not play this. I refuse to be a part of this band. And so we were like, okay. So we played anyway, and we got another bass player. And that hurt us a lot too, because the original bass player was very, very good, and our second bass player was learning.
Right.
So that hurt us a lot too. And eventually the band, disbanded. I got a little bit mad, and I left the band.
Well, that's the thing. Again, learning and having those experiences of being in a band.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just a general, I don't hear a Texas accent.
Oh, I was educated, so. I so occasionally I'll say a couple things like, "Hey, how are y'all doing? Y'all doing okay?"
Yeah.
But or when I get really drunk, sometimes I'll start kind of mumbling when I speak, which is kind of the accent. But no, my accent's pretty clear. I don't have a strong accent. But I also spent a lot of time away from Texas too, so that might have something to do with it. But a lot of my family, they don't really have an accent either. So I think it's just. It is what it is. It's kind of more of a stereotype than it is a thing that everyone does.
Right.
Well, people still do have it, but it's not as widespread as you would think.
Right. And your band in Colorado, did they do any recording?
We tried to do some recording. Me and Brandon definitely did some acoustic recording just at home, but the band was never able to actually get into a good studio to do anything official. We did tour a little bit. We played in a couple different places in Pueblo, Colorado Springs, and Denver, just the closest cities. But nothing official. Once the band kind of broke up, then it was just me, and I was just. That's when I kind of decided I'm not going to do any more covers. I'm just going to do original songs all the time. And I started doing kind of the open mic scene. That's I started my own business doing singing telegrams.
Right.
So there in Colorado, when I was working as a phlebotomist, my boss asked me, "Hey, Ray, you play guitar. Can you go to my wife and sing her song? It's our anniversary." I said, "Yeah, sure, and I learned the song, and I went and, knocked on her door and played the song, and she cried, and I thought, wow, this is a really cool thing. And so maybe within the next couple of months, I was like, I think I can do this. I think I'm going to just do this as a job. And so I started making, printouts and advertisements for a singing telegram business. So I got connection with one of the costume places, a place called Zizo's. It's a real famous old time costume shop there in Colorado Springs. Right. And so I would just rent or buy costumes from Zizo's, and then somebody would ask me to go play. Hey, can you dress up like a ninja? Can you dress up like a cow or something? And then I would go and dress up and show up at their work and embarrass them, and then play them a song, And it was really great. Like I really had a lot of fun doing that. Occasionally I would like mess up the song totally. I would get nervous. There was one time I remember, it was like one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Like really. I was asked to play like a One Direction. You've heard this band, One Direction?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I was asked to play a One Direction song for these two like teenage girls. Yeah. And they were like, oh, just show up. You can get them some like presents or prizes and balloons and stuff, and then show up at this place and sing them this One Direction song.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, yeah. And I learned the song and everything was fine. And when I showed up at the place was a dance studio, like a big theater dance studio. And when I went in, there was like 500 little girls, like plus the two girls that were like on their birthday. And so, oh my gosh, I'm cringing just thinking about this. Okay, so I went up to them and I gave them their balloons and the shit that I bought them. And then I started trying to do the song, and I messed up, like I couldn't remember how the next part goes. And then to one of the mom's credit, because the mom saw like what was going on, and the mom goes, okay girls, 1, 2, 3, and all the girls started singing the song, like, because they all fucking know it all super well. And I was horrified. It was horrifying. It was so horrifying. Yeah, so that was one of the most embarrassing moments ever doing that business. But from then on, I really practiced the songs and knew them really well before the actual gig.
Have you ever had stage fright before or after since that?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Not stage fright to the point of not being able to play, but I've definitely been nervous on stage. I mean, I think it comes with the territory of being in front of a crowd. But I think once you've done it enough, I mean, the whole point is to feel comfortable. Yes. When you think too hard about it, you put yourself in a state of mind. And you are uncomfortable, and the audience is uncomfortable seeing you uncomfortable. Yes. So and it goes back and forth like a you see them and they're like pulling back, and then you pull back. Yeah. And it continues. Yes. The cycle continues. So for me, I try to just remember that I'm just a person, they're just people, and this is just like a room, and I can do this, try to be as normal as possible. The same I would be if I were playing for one person in front of them. I would be nervous too, yes. But not the same kind of nervous as 500 people, but right. I still try to have the same mindset of, I'm just playing to one person, so just relax and have fun and try to just be casual. And I think that's the best way to go about it. But for sure, I still do get nervous and get frightened.
Yes. So you're in Colorado Springs. How long did you do this sort of thing?
So I was maybe doing this for about 1.5 years, and then I broke my arm. Actually, this is what kind of led me to having to move back home, because I was doing it full time. I had stopped working at the hospital, stopped doing phlebotomy, and I was doing just my own business, and then I locked myself out of my apartment, I locked my keys inside my car. Is what happened first. And so I was like, oh, well, I have a spare, but it's in my apartment and my door's locked. So my balcony's open. Let me just climb up the side of my apartment and get into the balcony. And I'm on the 3rd floor.
Spider-Man.
So I started climbing up, and I was actually doing well, but on the siding they have these bricks that kind of come out of the wall. and one of the bricks that I grabbed onto like just came out of the wall totally. Like so, it came out and then I fell and I landed on my face and landed on my arm and I broke my wrist and my arm. So I had to go into the hospital and it was all messed up. Like the radial part, this little ball was floating. It was floating around. It was all messed up.
Wow.
So I couldn't play. I couldn't play music. I mean, I couldn't play guitar. For the singing telegrams, I didn't play guitar. I actually played ukulele. So when I would do the telegrams, I'd play the ukulele because it was small and easy to carry around, and I can just learn songs really easily. But at this point, I could not do really anything. I did like a couple without the ukulele, and I just brought a bell, ding, 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 hear ye, you know. But it just wasn't the same, you know. And I was all like in a big cast and everything. And then I had like a bunch of medical bills and debt, you know. So I ended up having to go back to school. So it was at this time where I was like, well, what can I do? What are my options? I was thinking about joining the military. So I enlisted into the Marine Corps. I tried to do the Marine Corps. I went into boot camp, but they kicked me out because of this is embarrassing. I don't know if we cut this out later, but I have a medical marijuana license from Colorado because Colorado is open season for medical cannabis. So I had gotten a medical card since I had broken my wrist, and after I got the cast off, I was like, well, I can enlist in the military and it'll be all okay. So in the ASVAB or in the beginning process, you take the ASVAB, you go into MEPS, and they ask you a whole lot of questions. And one of the things is, have you ever had marijuana in your life? And I was like, no, I've never had marijuana in my life, you know. And so then a couple months go by, and we're doing training for firearms. So we all have like wooden firearms to like hold and learn how to swing around and stuff. And at this time, I imagine that behind the stages, they're actually getting our permits to carry these rifles, like to carry real rifles. And I assumed that they got to mine, and the medical marijuana card came up. And you cannot have a gun and have a medical marijuana license at the same time. So they were like, "You're out." And so I got kicked out of boot camp of Marine Corps. So
wow.
So yeah, I got kicked out, and that was whenever I was like, okay, I moved back home to Corpus Christi, because I was like,
how long were you in the boot camp for?
It was like 4 weeks.
Wow.
So they busted my ass. They busted my ass for a while, and then they kicked me out. You know.
But you would have been like in peak physical condition.
Oh yeah, I was in good condition for sure. And then I went back home and just started eating all the Texas food. No, actually, for a while I was still doing good. Like even in my hometown, I was running every day. Actually, I didn't start actually gaining weight until I moved to Shanghai, which was just a couple of years ago now. So now I'm kind of chunky, but I need to get back on the routine. You know, I still wake up super early. I still make my bed every day. I wake up in the morning. I make my bed. It's the first thing I do. There's still some things that just drilled into my head, you know.
So you go back home.
I go back home.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to finish my degree. I want to go back to college. I was thinking about enrolling in Colorado, but the out-of-state taxes were too expensive since I was actually from Texas. Right. So I went back home to finish my degree, and I got a job as a phlebotomist again, and just working in a hospital, doing needles and venipuncture and vaccinations, checking vitals and stuff. And then I was taking classes at the same time. Eventually, graduated and able to move out.
Did you get back into the music scene when you come back?
So I play some I played like some open mics, but nothing super big. I didn't play any billed or ticketed shows, even like a postered show. I was never on any posters or anything. I just like went to open mics when they happened and played music. And still at this point, I'm like, I'm only playing original music. So I watched other people around me, you know, playing, you know, Bruno Mars or Ed Sheeran or whatever the fuck. And while me, I'm like, oh, I'm going to play my own songs. And I can see them moving up and me staying exactly where I am. Yeah. You know, but that's just kind of how it is, especially with original music in the genre that I'm playing. I definitely just kind of stayed stagnant for a while until I was good enough to start actually doing some real shows.
Right. And were you writing originals at this stage?
Yeah, so since the Green Tangerine,
right,
the band,
right.
I had been writing originals. We'd done a lot of original music that I wrote or that me and my partner Brandon wrote together. Once we broke up, me and Brandon were not really on the best of terms. We had a falling out. We're still friends now. Me and Shauna. So him and Shauna were actually a couple.
Oh.
And we're all still friends, but there's definitely still some walls
yes.
that have gone up since then, for sure. So I had been writing originals throughout all this time, and by the time I went back home, I had a whole nest of originals that I was playing, just still working on and still trying to make better. Once I finished college, I was kind of just working, and I did a couple things just around town, but eventually I decided to move to China. I was working at the city gas department also. And I remember I was just sitting in like the back seat of one of the trucks, and it was like early in the morning, and we were going to a location to dig in the mud and muck and stuff. And I just thought, man, I just want to like travel somewhere. What if I move to China? And it's like, it's the year of the monkey, man. I'm a monkey. Let's move to China. Like, I'm gonna move to China. So I just, throughout my life, I've always like, if I set a goal, I feel like I've been able to achieve it with just persistence.
So was China always on the radar, or just randomly come up?
Asia was always on the radar.
Right.
I've always had but China seemed a little bit more mysterious to me than like Japan, and also I kind of was thinking like, long-term future with like Japan, and I was like, Japan's like a little tiny little island thing, can be washed away by the ocean, but China is big and strong, So China was kind of always kind of there as a place for me to go visit. At this time, I'd never been overseas. I'd spent a lot of time traveling around the country, but never really overseas. And so I just set the goal and started working towards it. I didn't even have a passport at that time, and so I was working on getting a passport and just saving up money to be able to do it. And I was looking for jobs. Originally, I wanted to, because I'm in the medical field, I wanted to join the Doctors Without Borders. So they actually aren't just in Asia, but they're everywhere. But a lot of the places that they go to are very dangerous. Like they'd be in like Syria, and the hospital that they're working at just gets bombed suddenly, and a lot of dead people. So it was really dangerous at that time. So I tried to join Peace Corps, but there was like a 2-year waiting list, and then I just decided, well, I can just move on my own. And there's so many teaching jobs. Teaching jobs are so easy to get, and they're high paying, and so that was the easiest thing for me to do, to get a job teaching. And so my first year I spent in Beijing, and then I moved to Shanghai after that.
So what was your first impression of Beijing?
I remember the first thing I thought whenever I got like out into the taxi and driving to like my hotel, I was like, man, it really smells. It smells out here. I'm like, is that the smog everyone's talking about? Should I be like,
Yeah.
And then they had like a water bottle like waiting for me in the thing, and I drank the water. I'm like, this water tastes strange, And it was just like on and on, like those little things, like wake up calls of like, this is a different place. Get used to it.
So what year was this that you come to Beijing?
At the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, because I've been here for almost 5.
Right. How was your Chinese at that stage?
So I had been practicing Pimsleur. So I had a little bit of things I could say, like, 你会说英语吗? Blah blah blah. 我说的不好, And that's still the amount of Chinese I know now. 5 years later, I'm still like, that's where I am. I'm like at that point of Chinese right now. So, my Chinese hasn't really gotten so much better. I even dated they say, oh, you should just date a Chinese girl who only speaks Chinese. And I tried that, and it didn't work out.
Doesn't work out.
It did not work out. She's one of the best people I've ever dated, and there's a stopping point of like, okay, well, this cannot go any further without communication, and since we can't communicate, it's like it's really difficult. So we ended up breaking up for that reason.
I hear you. So, how long were you in Beijing for? And were you still writing music at this stage?
Yes. Some of us, I wrote a lot of music in Beijing. Actually, some of my Pearls, the song that's kind of like my hit song,
Yes.
I wrote in Beijing. Just out of the blue, kind of came to me, and I played it a lot.
So you were playing shows in Beijing?
I played a few shows in Beijing, but not anything huge. Just a couple places that allowed me to play. There was this one, like maybe my second or third week in Beijing. There's this guy selling newspapers, as they do. There's a lot of them around. And I don't know, I just started talking to this guy, or trying to talk to this guy, and I asked him, hey, is it okay if I busk here next to your shop? And he was like, yeah. He even wrote me a sign in Chinese, and even to this day, we're still friends, and he calls me my China daddy. That's what he says. And I still have the note that he wrote for me one time. He's like, oh, this Laowai musician, give him money if you can, blah, 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 something like that. And so I played music next to him, just, played my originals, and I met a lot of just friends through that, doing that, and people come up to me like, hey, your music's really good, and I still have some of those friends as like friends, like real good friends on my WeChats even now, just from putting myself out there like that, which I haven't really since I had been a runaway. I haven't really put myself outside like that in years at this point, and so it was just kind of putting on an old pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And doing it again, and getting the crowd, and feeling good about it, and it was better than others. You can really gauge on how people react to songs, and you can kind of figure out what songs are really working and what songs are not really working so well. Before I would play covers, but now I was doing originals, and you could see the difference in response to one or the other. I think the Chinese people don't actually know what is a cover and what is original, so that kind of benefits me a little bit. To where if my original sounds as good as a cover song, then we're good.
That was interesting. A couple of girls come up to when we play one of the shows, and who plays that Lady Maybe song? I tried to find it on Spotify, and it's not on there. And I was like,
that's our song.
We did. Oh, really? I didn't know. I thought it was a cover song. So anyway, it's very interesting. Was it difficult to adapt coming to Beijing at the start of it?
I just downloaded DD 4 days ago.
Oh, really?
For the first time in 5 years. And I didn't realize how easy it was.
Yeah.
It just kind of threw me off, because my boss was like, yeah, just download the app. And so I downloaded DD, and then immediately it was like, where do you want to go? Yeah. This is where you are. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had DD the entire time I've been here. I would always hail a cab, or I'd take a bicycle, or I'd take the subway. But I had spent so much time just hailing cabs that I just thought that it's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. I'll hail a cab. But now I'm like, oh man, go exactly to the place. You're not overcharged ever. Yeah. That's the good thing. It's anytime I would hail a cab, I would always rely on their generosity. They'll click the Laowai button where the meter goes twice as fast.
Yeah. You go from here to here, and instead of going like that, they'll go, take you on the long route. Oh, busy traffic. I think you're. Did you do the touristy thing in Beijing? Were you not into that? You just,
I mean, of course, I saw the places. My first couple of weeks in Beijing, I went to all the places that were the staple places to go to, but I wasn't really super into it. I mean, Beijing is nice, but the culture in Beijing I don't think is really as prominent as even here in Shanghai, where everything's a little bit more. I think things in Shanghai are just older. Everything in Beijing seems kind of. I did not like living in Beijing. I felt like it was just always gray, just and the trees are in perfect uniform, down the line, and everything's just. I don't know how to explain it. It just wasn't my city. I didn't really like it so much.
Shanghai has turned into like a very modern.
I mean, I think there's pros and cons to any city that you live in. I know there's people in Shanghai who are angry about how they tear down old structures and build new ones, but there's still a lot of old culture hidden away in different places that you can still find, and it's still great to go see.
So was that the reason why you moved to Shanghai?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, I just really wanted to see other cities, and originally I was actually going to move to Xiamen.
Oh, yeah?
I was going to move to Xiamen, and then the school that I was working for said, hey, we have some schools, our company is in other places, we'll pay for your trip to go over there and everything. So I said, yeah, sure.
Come on.
Yeah. So they paid for my trip to come over to Shanghai, and it was pretty easy. It wasn't a tough move. I was able to get all my stuff over here and everything, so it was nice.
And again, the same question, like adapting to Shanghai. Was it a nice, easy transition? So,
even in the beginning when you asked about adapting to the city, I mean, of course, the culture, the language barrier was always a thing. Getting used to, like, the food of, like, my idea of Chinese food and actual Chinese food, of course, is different, because actually in my home, like, or in the U.S., Chinese food is, like, my favorite. Yeah. Like, so if or American Chinese food, anyway. So, when I would treat myself in the little times when I would actually have money, I would go to like a Chinese restaurant or like a Chinese buffet or something and just eat everything. And then coming here, it's like, my favorite foods are not here.
Yeah, that's right. It's not really Chinese.
It's not real Chinese.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so, but adapting to the city wasn't as difficult as you would think, since I had already moved to a lot of different cities and had put myself in a lot of strange places. It really wasn't that different as moving to any other city. It was the same thing, going online, finding roommates, finding a place to stay, renting and working and commuting, and it seemed very similar to any other place that I lived, besides the fact that most people don't speak when I'm speaking. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, it was pretty much the same.
For the Beijing girls or the...
Oh my gosh. Everyone is beautiful everywhere. Thank you.
There you go.
No.
That's a good answer.
Girls are beautiful. Like, I'm constantly... I think there's like... because I lived in Texas and I've lived in other places, but like when you... like an Asian girl, like in the U.S., is kind of like a sought after thing. You see this beautiful girl and you're like, oh my gosh, she's cute and beautiful and a little nerdy or something, and there's an attraction to that. So when I moved here, I wasn't used to like that being all around me all the time. So it's like I still like go through the subway and I'm like, she's adorable and she's adorable and she's adorable, and I would date any of them because they're all so adorable, So it's like that. It was even worse when I visited Hong Kong. Like, like, oh my gosh, everywhere, and it's so compact. Everyone's like together and like touching arms and stuff, and I'm like, oh man. Beautiful. It's like everyone is beautiful, so, and also everyone's beautiful and everyone's already dating somebody, so
that's right. The good ones are taken
and the crazy ones are
still looking. So coming to Shanghai, how long did it take for you to jump into the music scene and start playing as well in Shanghai?
Yeah, I mean, I probably found an open mic. I started playing a Yingtong open mic, pretty regularly. So I was doing that for a long time. Like, I would just go to the open mic. I would make, they would do it on Mondays, I think. And so I would just, set that day and be like, I'll practice for the Monday and go play the open mic. So it was very similar to what I was doing when I was in Texas, going to the open mics, or even whenever I was playing alone in Colorado, just targeting open mics. Once they stopped the Yuyintong open mic, well, they stopped for COVID, first of all, and then they never returned. Like, they didn't want to do it anymore. Right. And that's basically when we started doing our shows. Like, whenever I started... You've heard of the Mojo shows? Yeah. The one me and Zedju Tainer do together. So originally the idea for that was, let's do our open mic. Let's have an open mic that we're responsible for. And so we kind of ran it as an open mic for a while, for maybe 2 or 3 of them. They were just straight up open mics.
It was a race. It was a race to put your name on the board, right?
Yeah, and then it just became easier for us to just book bands to play those. New bands that wanted to play. It was easier to like, oh well, this band wants to play, and this band wants to play. It started off with one major band, then it was like 2 bands, and now we're doing like 6 bands each night. We do 2 a month, and it's always like a big lineup now of people. I even have the next like 2 already scheduled up with bands to play. Right. So yeah, we've been doing that as far as like to fill in that space of like a place for new bands to play where there's not really a place for them to be heard, or and the venue is able to like listen to them, and if they like them, they'll put them on the bill for a Saturday. So they're getting those opportunities thanks to these Mojo shows that we're able to put together. So
you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And it's great that you give these bands an opportunity to get out there and play their music, do their thing. That's great. For the future, are you going to continue to do this? Do you plan? What are your sort of plans?
So, you asked me before if I could see this as a career, like if. I wouldn't be able at this moment. I cannot quit my job to pursue this thing. I'm doing it as a hobby, but I feel like, it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing, and I'm doing more and more, and my name's becoming more and more out there. That I feel like it's just snowballing into something bigger. So I feel like if I'm just persistent enough, maybe it'll lead to something better, bigger and better. Yeah. Maybe one day we will be able to book those. Those out of town bands, the bands on the other side of the world to come and play and make a decent money doing organizing shows like that. But
I can just see it in. Sorry to cut you off. No. I can just see it in the future. The bands, there's going to be so many bands out there that want to travel that they just want to play. So like before it was like, oh, you got to have this amount of money to come and all these bands. Now it's going to be like, we'll just come. If they can get a crowd, okay, whatever you can pay us. I think it's going to be so good for music, and I hope when people go out to shows. I mean, you can go out to shows now, but when the international bands come out, you've got to go and see them.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure people are going to flock to those shows for sure. I mean, they always did, even before everything. I mean, bands would come in through, and people would line up to go see them. So
I'm still waiting for. I've got 2 Green Day tickets in Hong Kong. Still waiting for Green Day to come to Hong Kong.
Oh no!
They booked a show. They were doing an Asia tour. Yeah, Hong Kong. So they're being rescheduled for one day.
One day.
So we're just sort of waiting for that. And for your music, are you going to record sort of new songs? What are your plans for your music?
So I definitely need to record like a full album. I have some EPs of just like acoustic, playing live acoustic, stuff. I've been working on a couple of songs like in the studio, putting the pieces together like little by little. Like, okay, now we're going to come in and we're going to do the piano. Okay, now this day we're going to come in and do the bass, or now we're going to do the background vocals, or so just piece by piece I've been putting some stuff together, but it's a lot of work in progress, and also I'm paying out of pocket to do it. So
right. I thought you would have like just went in and did your own thing, like acoustic guitar. So actually getting a session players to come in and
I want to put together a real album. I have tons of acoustic recordings.
Material,
I actually did so the EP, I think I sent it to you this morning. It's from Mao Lifehouse. I went to Mao Lifehouse and recorded just a live acoustic there. They leveled me and everything, and the recording is very good, but it's just not sellable. I can't sell it. I definitely want to put together something more structured, something more official, and something you could play on the radio, or that can be in the background of like a movie or something. I mean, that's kind of my goal. Like I would like to see my music in like a movie or in movies, just to coast off of that for the rest of my life.
It can happen.
Yeah.
But you've got to get out there. You've got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm consistently
you are
moving towards it. I'm trying my best to put my name out there for sure. Playing more shows. I played more shows in the last year than I've ever played ever. Really. Even with a band or with my band back in Colorado, I've definitely played way more shows here, and legit shows, like shows on a bill, getting paid, on the flyer, prominent billing, everything is kind of lining up to something bigger. So I think if I'm just persistent, it's gonna work itself out.
And we've played with you quite a few times as well.
Yeah. Hey, I like you guys. You guys are good.
And trying to. Yeah.
That's what you were asking me about my getting stage fright, and what I admire about Josh, who's the head of your band, is how charismatic he is on stage. Like, that's one of his best qualities, of his charisma on stage, and just like being super natural and witty and funny. Like, as a frontman, that's like it's really gold to see. Even if he's not necessarily the best singer or the best guitar player, like to see him play is very entertaining.
It's a show, and people will go to see it because it's nice, it's endearing, it's good. I always try to encourage him to do that as well. Go down there. He's got his wireless guitar now, so anytime he doesn't sing, he goes into the crowd. Totally agree. You're playing with Rat King, you're playing with all these sort of hardcore metal bands, and there's radio on the bill down the bottom there, playing this acoustic show. But that's the cool thing about the whole Shanghai music scene, that it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously you want to have like the same style of music, but I like having the variety to have a rock band and a metal band and like an acoustic band, like acoustic solo like yourself. I think it's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I've been able to get myself onto bills just because I've booked so many bands. That's right. So they all owe me favors. They're like, hey, you want to play this show as an opener? I'm like, yeah, I'm the best opener in town, man. And like we said, we owe you a show, so we're talking about that. So hopefully we'll be able to play. I'm sure we'll play with you in the future. For sure. Do you have plans to sort of stay in China long term, or you don't want to think about that yet? Within the last year, since COVID happened, since I started booking these shows, I actually got my own business license. So I'm doing this like under the guise of my business. So I do get legitimate contracts with the venues, and I'm getting income through to my business and out again to my personal. But I mean, for now, like I started this business and I intend to continue doing it. We're already working on my next year visa for my visa for next year, because I have my own visa. So that's what I'm kind of doing now. Just using my business to help coordinate these bands and coordinate the business with the venues. I mean, for right now, I intend to stay. Eventually, I want to move for sure to another place. I think if something ever happens, I don't know what could happen, but if I ever get kicked out of China, I would try to move to Taiwan or maybe Japan or something like that. I kind of want to stay in Asia and continue to admire the beautiful women around me. Lots of beautiful women around there. I went to South Korea 2 years ago, and I did the tour. I did Korea, then Japan, and the Philippines, and oh boy, lots of really very nice people. All right, where can we find your music for our Australian listeners? Okay, so if you're in Australia and you're listening, you can go onto YouTube. You can look up Radio Shanghai just on YouTube, and you can find some of my videos that I've recorded. I'm also on SoundCloud. I think it's Radio 3, or please make sure you put Radio and then Shanghai or 3. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You have to or even in SoundCloud, if you search Radio RAYDIO. And then Shanghai next to it, my stuff will definitely pop up, as on the top stuff. So if you are interested in listening to my music, you can find me on SoundCloud. You can find me on YouTube, Reverb Nation. I'm also on Reverb Nation, and I think for right now that's it. I'm not in any of the big platforms yet, but that's because I don't have a super professional EP that I want to put out there on
the Spotify, QQ Music, and things like that. I definitely want to wait until I have something really good to put on that stuff. So for right now, just you can follow me on the YouTube. That's what I use the most, and SoundCloud I use for recording just kind of like newer songs and things, and Reverb Nation I just have there for recordings too.
So now we're going to get to our questions.
No.
Our
the ones I didn't prepare for.
No, that's the thing. We can't have it prepared, and it should be on the spot. Ray, are you ready?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. Okay, we've been talking about music. Who are your top 3 favorite bands or artists as of today? All time.
Okay. I guess my favorite, I really love Radiohead. I've loved Radiohead for a long time. I really like their music, influenced by them a lot. I'm influenced by Dave Matthews a lot, and Elliott Smith, I think, are two, like, in the acoustic genre that I just really aspire to try to emulate. I love Dave Matthews' like his voice, like the way he sings, his kind of soulful voice. I love his voice. I actually picked up his live in Radio City. Have you ever heard Live at Radio City? He has an acoustic DVD.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, when I was maybe 14, 15, I picked this DVD up, and it has, even to this day, like, I listen to the songs and I just sob. I'm like, oh, I remember listening to these songs when I was like in the most sad moments of my life. Like, but it has influenced like what I'm doing now. I can see myself in my music now trying to do what that does, and so that's what really kind of hits me hard. Elliott Smith also, a great acoustic artist who who went a little bit too young, but is still influencing people to this day, and his music is just so beautiful and inspirational, especially how he plays the guitar. Like, he has like these little licks that are so small but are just so good. So the way Elliott Smith plays guitar and the way Dave Matthews plays or sings songs, I just love the combination of those two things. And then the last I would say is, right now I've been listening to this band called Feng Suave or Feng Suave. I found them on YouTube, but they are awesome. They're from the Netherlands, and they just play really cool, casual, just chill music, and I just love what they're doing.
Right.
They're a new band. They've put out a couple of EPs, but they are very fantastic, and I like them a lot. Every single song I hear by them is so good. It's a smash. So I would recommend them. Feng Suave. It's FENGSUAVE. Suave.
Okay, so coming close to Shanghai, who are your top 4 favorite artists in Shanghai?
Local
original music scene. Yes.
Local artists.
Yes.
I have to say Deku. Deku's one of my favorite bands. They're so good. I'm really into like the bands I play with that are my friends, Snuff Disco and Flip House. They are my, like, Flip House is so good, and I love their music. You can find them on every
the new album's great.
Yeah, it's so good. Flip House and Snuff Disco. I'm wearing their shirt right now.
Representing.
I'm representing right now. And I do love Rat King. Another Rat King is just, I love them because they remind me of being a preteen, being a little teenager and going to crazy shows and getting knocked around all over the place. So it really reminds me of my childhood. So I really like them a lot. Also, this little band called Full Throttle.
Cheap pop.
or as some would say, Star Maiden Apocalypse.
Oh, wow. Now we're getting back in time. Yeah.
Somebody told me the other day, they were like, man, I saw Star Maiden Apocalypse like 4 years ago, and they were awful. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like, well, they're changed now. They're pretty different from whatever they used to be.
It's a different thing. Yeah. They used to play at all the open mics, and that's the story. The first open mic night that I went to when I went to Shanghai, they played there. And I just said, I like that song Jenny. I've got that, my dad's got that on like vinyl. If you want to jam, hit me up. And they did 3 weeks later.
Nice.
And now all of them have gone. And now it's just me and Josh. So
So you're a different band now.
We just need that low end. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Why haven't you gone seeking out a bass player?
I think it's a bit of a comfort thing. It's not like a urgent.
You're doing fine without them. You're still playing a lot of shows, and I really love Carbon. Carbon, they haven't been playing a lot, but they're really good. Dude, they're gonna play with me on my birthday show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're playing on the 3rd.
Oh.
I have them coming back. Yeah, they're not gonna stay together for longer after that. But
that's so cool.
But
give your plugs to your upcoming shows.
Oh, okay. So next 3 shows. I have 3 shows. One is my birthday show on July the 3rd, which is at Lofa's. I'm playing with Carbon, Flip House, and White Ink. Carbon and Flip House and me.
Damn you! Yeah. We're playing the week after.
The very next day on July the 4th, which is a holiday, I'm playing with. It's gonna be me. This dude named Mario, who's the guy who interviewed me on the video. I don't know if you saw that. The guy who did video.
I saw a little bit of it.
Anyway, he has he looks like Mario. That's what he calls himself, Mario. This girl named Islet Huang, who's actually from Beijing, and I'm actually paying for her trip to come and go. And then Spaghetti Cowboys and Willie and the Wonkai. Oh my gosh!
Oh, there you go.
My favorite. I should have said Willie and the Wonkai. Actually, they're one of my favorites too because cool. They play like my style, my genre of music, and they're also just very fantastic.
He's so passionate up on stage.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So good. So that's on the 4th of July, and then on the 11th of July, I'm playing at Mao Lifehouse with Snuff Disco, a Beijing band that we're also paying to come down here called Daydream, and then a local like college band called Green Young. Both the 2 Chinese bands, Green Young and Daydream, they're also like high status like big bands. So I'm really lucky to have them to come on and play with us. As far as like Chinese artists, a lot of Chinese people know who they are. And then Snuff Disco, they're just like my friends and favorites. So I love to have them play with me.
And Vigilantes, come on!
You're gonna play drums twice?
I don't know yet. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. It's not confirmed.
Yeah. So if they find a drummer, the Vigilantes, wink, then maybe they might be able to play at the show. So that's all to be confirmed as well.
You are replacing the hot drummer, man. I'm sorry.
Well,
you would be if they say yes.
Such a shame.
Dude, she's so. I'm gonna text her right now.
You're getting replaced by some dude from Australia. Anyway, your 4 all-time favorite albums.
In Rainbows by Radiohead. I really love In Rainbows. People would say OK Computer's good, but In Rainbows really hits a special spot with me because of when it came out. I was like 15 at that time, and it was right around my angst ages of being alive. I really love 13th Step by A Perfect Circle. 13th Step is and Lateralis by Tool.
Does that have Judas on it? The song?
13th Step. It has no Judith, right? Yeah. Judith is on the previous one. This one has Weak and Powerless. It's, Over You and Gravity. There's a whole bunch of good songs on that. But from beginning to end, it's magical. It's a magical experience to just listen to that song from that album from beginning to end. I mean, I don't want to say anything cliche like, Dark Side of the Moon, That's everyone's favorite album, or like Abbey Road or something. But I used to listen to this band. I still kind of do listen to them. The Decemberists have this album called, I think it's one of the songs on it is Wanting Comes in Waves, but it's like it's an opera, like a rock opera. And it's very, very good by this band called the Decemberists. Have you heard of them?
No.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, I saw them live in Colorado once, and you know where Colorado is, like in the middle of the country,
yeah.
and and this December Essay came out, and they were like, "Yo, this song is about the ocean." He's like, "I know a lot of y'all from Colorado don't know what the ocean is, but it's a big body of water." Oh, The Hazards of Love.
Right.
It's the album called The Hazards of Love by the Decemberists. I really, really love that album. It's so good. It's a very, very good album. So I try to stay away from my favorite bands and just kind of give you some stuff that is different. But that's one that comes to mind that I listen to from beginning to end, and I think is really, really good.
Awesome. I'll check that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a sports fan?
Kind of. I mean, I definitely I've seen sports.
Do you have sporting teams like college or?
Yeah. Well, so people from my hometown are into the Cowboys, right? Because I'm from Texas.
Cowboys, yeah.
But also, since I lived in Colorado, I watching Denver a little bit, so I watched them because they're a good team. One of the things about about Denver is that they're training in the mountains. Whenever a team goes and plays in Denver, they can't even breathe. They don't know how to throw the ball correctly. Mm-hmm. But like this team, they train in that high altitude, so they're like machines when they go and play other places. So I think they're very good. College, I like the Longhorns as far as a football team. I like the Spurs as far as a basketball team. San Antonio Spurs, and that's just because I spent time in San Antonio, so I know. It would be like if the Spurs won a game, the convenience stores in San Antonio would give you a free coffee.
Right.
So so anytime they would win a game, everybody would be like, "Yeah, free coffee!" Woo! And they still do that. Yeah, I guess those are kind of like the teams that I kind of keep an eye out for.
World destinations. I want you to tell me your 3 or 4 top places you've been to in the world, and then 3 or 4 places that you want to go to.
I always wanted to go to like Norway. I've always wanted to like visit Norway. I've never been there, and I would really like to go there. As far as places like
metal.
Yeah, exactly. Black metal. I want to burn some churches. I want to make a necklace out of my friend's skull. So I had always talked about like wanting to move there when I was younger. Like I want to go to Norway, but I think as far as places that I have been to that I really love, Colorado Springs is in like one of the top places I've ever been to. It is beautiful there. It's a gorgeous place to live. I remember just driving to work every day. I would just be so happy in the morning, seeing the sun come up and all the trees and the mountains and just like the way that all the roads kind of are like, and you can see all the houses kind of like going like this, and it's just a gorgeous place to live. I really love living there.
Good skiing.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit more north. You could do that place. Like they have the little mountains, like Pikes Peak. Pikes Peak actually used to be a railroad because they would transport like a military goods across like over the mountain. So kind of this train track that goes all the way up the mountain. But they removed all the steel, and the only thing that's left are these like wooden pillars, like and they're like steps. And so there's this thing called the incline where people will just like go up the stairs, and get to the top of the mountain. And it's a pain in the ass to get up there. It's like a 2 mile, 4 kilometers to go up, and it's just like it's difficult. It'll be like a workout. So like once a week you go and climb the incline, you'd be like, yeah. It's really nice.
Sorry, with the sporting, like I think the Colorado Rockies, the stadium is Mile High Stadium.
The Mile High Stadium, yeah. Because so Denver is higher elevated than where Colorado Springs is. Right. So Denver, they call it the Mile High City,
right?
Because it's the elevation is higher, like by a long shot than a lot of the other places.
Apparently, ball goes further because of the air.
That's what I'm saying. Like when teams go and play there, they don't know how to
adapt. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and also like they have breathing problems, and because they can't, so you'll see them tire easier, and that's why the Denver team is so good all the time, because they're training in that like low oxygen, high altitude, space.
And I can't believe it. They had a World Series there a couple of years ago. Colorado were in the World Series, and one of the games they played like in like early November, and it was just coming down the snow, and they still had to play, and they had like all you could see with the players were just their eyes. They had all these
masks and
stuff. Yeah, masks. Yes. Very interesting.
When I was there in Colorado, a couple of times I worked some like temp jobs, and one time me and my friend we got picked to go and sweep the snow, shovel the snow out of the stadium.
Yeah, right.
So us and like 50 other people were just like shoveling and cleaning snow off the stadiums because like the game was like the next day or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's a really nice place. I loved Colorado as a place to live. I love Shanghai. The reason I've been here so long, and I've spent a lot of time in other places, but like in little bursts. Like I'll be here for a little bit and then I'll move because I just kind of get restless and bored of the place. But Shanghai, I've been here the longest because it's so great. It's a great city to live in. The people here are great. The community is great, and there's a lot of great things to do. So.
And it's such a shame, and maybe I'm just generalizing, but the US and Australia and the UK. The people only see the bad things about China, so they have this sort of preconceived idea of what China is like.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's definitely some negatives for sure.
Oh, of course.
Negatives for sure. And I mean, not all the things that people think are necessarily wrong. I mean, there are a lot of problems with.
Oh, definitely. The government, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as like standard of living, I mean, the people here are doing great. I feel like, and I'm really happy. My standard of living is very high compared to any other time in my life. You know, with a job that I can get out of basically high school here. Like a lot of people don't even need degrees to do what they're doing here, and they're getting good money, to do it. So
yeah, and like we talked about before, like I saw you on Friday night. That was Chimera Cole. Then I saw you on the Saturday night, and it was Loose Booty. And totally different. But there's so many places to go and see music, and especially that I know in Australia that just don't have that understanding of. They just have this whole notion of what China and Shanghai is about. Like my mum and sister come, and I was like, "Whoa!" It's just like another. It's just totally blown away. I didn't think it would be like this, and I was like, "I've been telling you all this time."
I mean that goes into what you were saying or what I was saying about like, oh, did you have to adapt?
Yeah.
It's like not really because it's like any other city in the world, really. Yeah. Or even better sometimes in a lot of ways. So
have you got one more place that you want to go to visit?
That I want to go to. I definitely. I went to Japan. I really love Japan. I'd like to see more places in Japan.
Me too.
What impressed me the most about Japan was the toilets. Oh my gosh! What a whole new world we live in where like. It's always warm when you sit down. It's always clean as fuck, and you could just like there's the buttons that just do everything.
Why talk to me? It was talking to me. Do you want warmer? Press here for warmer. Press 2 for spray. And it's like this is so cool.
I'm like yes, get it. Get on in there.
Such an experience.
No, yeah.
First time you sit on
I love that, and then also the people are. On the surface, they're very, very nice. I can imagine people saying, well, they seem nice, but they're kind of like just,
they're nice. Well, they've got the Olympic Games, so they gotta start getting.
They're not gonna open up the borders for anybody though. The borders in Japan are still pretty tight. I don't think a lot of people are gonna be able to travel besides the players themselves.
I think Japan got hit pretty hard as well.
Yeah. And even the players are going to be under strict restrictions for they're probably going to come in. They're probably going to come in early, have to do a quarantine. There's going to be problems. There's going to be people sneaking out.
There's going to be countries boycotting it, and some that are going to come. I like that you're well travelled as well. I like that people have you've gone and seen different things. I mean, I think that's what more people need to do. Go out to big world.
Oh, for sure.
Last question. Who is your greatest inspiration / hero?
Woo! Inspiration / hero. Batman. No,
Why?
Oh no, you're serious about that one, huh?
Yeah.
No, That's not true.
Josh Pemberton.
Josh Pemberton. Hey, I do admire what he does.
Yeah.
He's not my hero, but I do like what he does on stage. I do like his charisma. I would say like Dave Matthews probably. Matthews probably like is what I aspire to be, like this man who's like just like rugged but has these beautiful soft songs and has this really nice voice, and he's in movies and he's in television, and he's just I think that's kind of like one of my heroes. And Elliott Smith too, like what he's done. And as far as music is concerned, I think I would consider them my what I idolize the most as far as doing what I'm doing now. I think that's what I would say.
That's a good answer. Good answer to finish it off. Ray, you're waving the flag for Shanghai music. You've always helped me out, supported my bands here in Shanghai. Good luck with everything. I hope that you continue, giving new bands opportunity to play. Good luck with the album. Hope it all, and come back on when it's finished, and we'll plug it. And
so I know we're gonna start doing like a video podcast, right? So
it's in the works.
Once we do that, man, we should do some songs too.
Cheers, Ray.
Thank you so much, brother.
I'm turning a stone, sir. Leave my bones, leave them alone, so you can know which way I lay my head and wake me up when I am dead. Feed me with the morning rising. Look into my eyes. I've seen it on the mountain. I've seen it all before. So I cannot go down right here. I've seen it all before. Oh, shake me till I'm dead. 'Cause I like my money but love my gin, so I spend it all over again. Oh, shake me till I am dead. 'Cause I like my religion but I love my sin, so I do it all over again. I said I like my religion but I love my sin, so I do it all over again. So I spend it all over again. Oh, shake me till I am dead. 'Cause I like my religion but I love my sin, so I do it all over again. I said I like my religion but I love my sin, so I do it all over again. I've seen it all before. cannot go down right here. Seen it all before. Oh, shake me till I'm dead. 'Cause I like my money, but I love my gin, so I spend it all over again. Oh, shake me till I'm dead. 'Cause I like my religion, but I love my sin, so I do it all over again. I said I like my religion, but I love my sin, so I do it all over again.
Hi, I'm Tony Fair, founder of Victorian Grooming Company. Is your beard feeling dry or the skin underneath itchy? Maybe you'd rather soften and tame your beard instead. Our classic collection of beard oils, balms, and soaps will leave your beard looking, feeling, and smelling amazing. And if you prefer shaving, our pre-shave oils and shave soaps will give you a smooth and razor burn-free shave. Handmade in Edmonton with natural ingredients. Visit victoriangrooming.com.
Hi, I'm Nigel the Shanghai Psychic. I can tune into your loved ones in the spirit world, but I can also tune into you, tell you about your path and the choices that you need to make and need to know. I'm currently giving 30% discount on all Tell Craig Your Story listeners. Just use the code Tell Craig Your Story for 30% off your first psychic reading with me online at Nigel the Shanghai Psychic.